Yo, what's up guys, and welcome back to the third episode of Let's Have a Drink, or Ask the OT, where I answer your questions that you ask me on Twitter with hashtag AskTheOT, and we just sit back, have a drink together, and let the good times roll. So without further ado, let's go ahead and crack this beer open and get the questions going. So the first question is coming from @Puga830, and the question is S6 Edge Plus or Note 5? And honestly, I haven't used the S6 Edge Plus, but it's pretty much the same thing as the S6 Edge. And from my experience with the S6 Edge compared to the Note 5, I'd have to say Note 5. I love the S Pen, love the display, love the camera, and love the build quality. The next question comes from @Mr. Hairston, and he asked, with mobile payments increasing, which company do you see making it to the top? Samsung, Apple, Android, or Google? Well, Android is Google, so that's those two combined. So it's pretty much between Samsung, Apple, and Android. And to answer your question, I haven't used Android Pay as it's not really released yet, even though they do have Google Wallet. But that's pretty much going to be obsolete once Android Pay enters. So between Android, Apple, and Samsung, I'd have to say Samsung at this very given moment in time. Even though Android Pay is not yet released, Samsung has that technology that lets you use it with the older credit card readers, so it's a little bit more versatile. The next question comes from @Mike1224200. The question is, what are some must-haves to start YouTubing? Well, you need somewhat of a microphone, whether it's the microphone built into the camera or a secondary mic like a USB one or something like that. Then of course you need a camera, but you could actually use a camera on a smartphone, such as the Galaxy S6, the iPhone 5, 5S, iPhone 6, 6 Plus. As long as it has a decent 1080p camera, you're fine. All you gotta do is work with the exposure on that camera to accomplish the shots that you want. Of course, you're gonna need some software to edit all that footage and piece it together the way you want to, and to color correct here and there. And iMovie is great, and you can also add some transitions to make your footage flow a little bit better. Of course, you're gonna need some type of stabilization device, such as a tripod, Moto, or something like that whenever you're filming your shots. And if you're using your smartphone, you're gonna need some type of an adapter to hold that smartphone to a quick plate in the tripod. So the next question comes from @CamButton. And the question is, which piece of regular consumer tech have you seen make the biggest positive impact on your client/patients? When I worked in the school system, the piece of tech that I used the most, that had the most impact on my children or patients, was the Wii. Believe it or not, the Wii is a very, very strong tool, especially when you're treating kids with autism disorder or kids that have a lot more energy, like ADHD or even ADD. It makes them focus on the task at hand, and it gives them a sense of accomplishment whenever they level up. Plus, if you do a few little wrist weights, just something to help them burn off that excess energy, and then once they get a little bit tired, then you focus on things like handwriting, you focus on things like memory building or cognition training. You basically work in like a pyramid approach, which is something that my wife's OT taught her when she was doing her clinical rotation in school. And I look back on it, and that's pretty much what we did, except we didn't call it a pyramid approach. And it's just a great, great tool. And you can do so much with it. You're doing fine motor, you're doing gross motor, and you're doing balance. It's just a great tool, and that's what I use in the pediatric department. Now, as far as the other two that I was talking about, the second one would be, there's a balance machine. I don't really know the name of it off the top of my head, but it stuck with me to this day. And I did my rotations like 5 years ago. And what it does is, you stand a patient on it, and the patient has to balance the floor of it. And there's a little dot on the screen, and they have to keep that dot centered. And they have to do it for like, 15, 20 seconds. And as they're stabilizing it, it's reading their balance levels. And then it prints you out a full treatment plan to work on their balance, just like that. So instead of you having to measure their balance and come up with all these different treatment approaches, this actually does it for you. It tells you what their weaknesses are, what their strengths are, and then you build your plan of care upon that. And then the third one, which is a really easy one, we deal with a lot of cognition. Occupational therapy, if you go back to the roots, was actually focused on schizophrenic patients. So we came from a cognitive background. We came from altered mental status. We came from the psychological background. That's where we evolved. And I found one of the key tools that I use in my nursing homes or the hospital is the iPad. And the reason why the iPad is so great is because you can do so many things with your fingers, and then you're accomplishing sequencing, problem solving, and strength with the brain. So you're doing memory building, you're doing sequencing, you're doing problem solving, you're doing all these things with a piece of technology that you can, if you're using the iPad mini, fit in your pocket. And then, there's other things that really don't involve so much brain training per se, that you can use your fingers to like pinch bugs and just follow directions. And it's another great tool for kids. The next question comes from @MobileGadget. And the question is, what's your go-to tech for the car? This is pretty simple. I really don't have too much tech in my car. I don't really have a wireless charger. I don't have a GPS unit. I do hook up my phone through Bluetooth to my receiver. So my go-to tech, pretty much my only go-to tech for my car that I use all the time, is my OnStar link. I can, start my car remotely. I check on the diagnostics of it. I have navigation built into it. It's got theft support or something like that, where if it's stolen, they can shut it off. But that's my go-to tech item. And then of course, with all that comes XM radio and so on and so forth. So pretty much my favorite or my go-to tech item in my car is my head unit that came with my car. The next question is coming from @JSantana, and the question is, what's your favorite smartphone? Well, I know I say it in every single video how much I'm looking forward to the Moto X style, but currently my favorite smartphone I've used so far, Note 5 all the way. Great camera, great screen, awesome performance, and okay battery life. The next question comes from @AGNTV, and the question is, if you could only have one phone for a year between the Moto X Play and the OnePlus 2, which one would you get? Actually, these two phones are probably more comparable than the Moto X style versus the OnePlus 2, given the price range, the screen, and then the specs somewhat. But I really haven't used the Moto X Play, so it's really hard for me to decide between those two, and I haven't even used the Moto X style. But if I could only pick one, given the background of the Moto X Play versus the OnePlus 2, especially having used the OnePlus 2, I'd probably go with the Moto X Play. Okay, so the last question is coming from @RonnieMartinez1, and the question is, the giveaway's real? Well, I know it says in your tweet that you're not talking about me, but there are fake giveaways out there, and usually it's the people that you see with, not that many subs doing a giveaway for a really expensive phone. So you gotta kind of watch that and just see how legit they are. Go back and watch their other videos, read their comments, and see what people have said about them. Well guys, that does it for another episode of Let's Have a Drink or Ask the OT. If you guys want me to keep going with this episode, remember you guys know what to do. Hit that like button, leave me a comment in the section below. Let me know what you want to see on the next one or any other series that you want me to start. Go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss any of my future videos, and make sure you get me your questions before Monday when it comes to what you want to see on this video. So hit me up on Twitter with #AskTheOT, and I'll get your question on next week's video. Of course, you guys take care, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Peace.